Do you want to wake up every morning with the energy and the vitality of a lion? Do you want to have incredible sex with your partner that leaves you energized and renewed? Today, I'm going to talk with Jared Dempsey, who is a Qigong specialist and the founder of Effortless Qigong, about how we can use Taoist techniques to reduce stress, enhance our energy, and even improve our sex life. Both Qigong and sexual mastery techniques are important parts of self-cultivation branch of Taoism, and they have some great wisdom to give us, perhaps today more than ever, about personal growth and health. Welcome, Jared. I'm happy to have you here. Would you tell us a little about yourself and how you found Qigong growing up in Canada?
Hi, Moshe. I'm glad to be here. And I wanted just to start by saying I think it's interesting how both Qigong and Taoist sexual practices can both be used to improve our lives because in terms of Qigong, I'm more focused on our daily living, like when we go to work, when we're spending time with our family and our kids or doing our hobbies. Qigong is a great practice for having less stress and more energy throughout that whole time. But of course, our sex life is a huge part of our lives. And I think when we take full ownership of our energy in all of our areas of our lives, then that's what really adds up to building a high quality life. Ever since I was a young person, I've dealt with anxieties, stresses, had ADHD diagnosis. So I used to struggle with my emotional regulation and these types of problems as a young person. And so as I grew up and I started living on my own after high school, I began searching for ways to regulate my emotions, to have less stress, to feel better. And I started doing things like journaling, reading self-help books, watching a lot of lectures on different wellness trends and fields out there. And I also started meditating. And it was at a oneness festival, online oneness festival, that I discovered the practice of Qigong. I thought it was really interesting. I ended up finding Holden Qigong, which is the style I'm certified to teach in, and I fell in love with it. And so for me, Qigong combines the mindfulness, exercise, the visualization, the energy work, and it promotes health and longevity in the body. So for me, it addressed everything that I was looking for at that time.
It's quite fascinating how often those challenges can turn later on to strength that we can give on to people we work with. How do you explain to friends or family members what is Qigong?
When it comes to explaining Qigong to friends, family, especially pretty much anybody that I meet in general hasn't really heard of Qigong before, or it's been like a passing note that they may have heard. I like to just first start off with the fact that Qigong is a form of exercise that promotes longevity and health, and it helps us to have less stress and more energy throughout our lives. And so it's really a form of exercise that helps us to get really what we want, especially as we get older and we age, right? Because, maybe when we're younger, we're really focused on building, and this can be through all life, but, we want to look, we want to look really good. We want to be really fast, athletic. We want to be competitive. Qigong is a little bit different than that. Qigong is a form of exercise that's really for having less stress and more energy, and it's really applicable to daily living.
One of the things I find fascinating about energy levels is that we often don't have a reference to what it is to be energized. Often we walk around feeling tired, exhausted, and we just think it's normal. It was a long day. I mean, I'm dealing with a lot of men who um, start to maybe notice that they do lose energy after ejaculation, but they don't really have that reference of how it could feel if you would finish the sex and be completely energized and just buzzing with energy. You talked a little about some of the benefit from practicing qigong. For someone who doesn't have any idea about that, how long would you say it would take them to have a feeling for the techniques?
For most people who are looking to try Qigong, to have less stress, more energy, you can start to feel it usually in just 5 to 10 minutes of practice. You're gonna notice a shift in just that short amount of time. And the reason for that is because if you're like most people living in the West, you spend a lot of time sitting, you spend a lot of time on your computer, you spend a lot of time with a low-grade anxiety, low-grade stress, and you also tend to hold your breath a little bit, like you aren't fully breathing. And so what's great about a Qigong practice is that in just 10 minutes, we can breathe, stretch, usually do a little bit of knocking or self-massage, and that starts to free up your blood flow. It frees up the lymph drainage. It brings in the oxygen, helps it that really important gas exchange, which is when we talk about qigong, we're really the most fundamental sort of basic energy that you have comes from your breathing, right? Because if you don't breathe for 5 minutes, your body dies, right? That's a really simple energetic component is just your breath. Your breath is super important.
I can say from my experience that working with men and their sexuality usually does require several weeks of investing in the practice. And maybe part of it because it tackles that type of ability to sense the chi, the energy moving in the body, to start to really notice a change during sex.
And that's a good point as well. For me personally, when it came into the feeling of the chi, the moving of energy, it did take me several weeks, if not years, to start to really feel what my teacher was feeling. Because it's like a muscle you're developing. You're developing a few things with Qigong. And I'm assuming it's the same for Taoist sexual energy practices. Is you're developing your ability to bring awareness into your like subjective field, like feeling your emotions, your thoughts. For qigong, you're also feeling the warmth in your body. You're feeling your emotions. You're also feeling the chi feels sort of like the static on like a TV a little bit. So it's like this very subtle, soft energy. And I think one of the challenges, and maybe it's the same for people who have resistance to doing Taoist sexual energy practices, is if they don't feel it right away, they worry if it's not real or if they're fooling themselves, if they're just making things up in their mind and they don't want to be fooled. So maybe they stay away from it.
There seemed to be not a clear way to see from outside how long things will take. I mean, I had some client who once asked me, okay, so how long would it take me to get a full body orgasm? And I said, I can't say it. And I think part of that and what you're referring to, the different lengths of time till people really start to feel that movement in the body and be able to control that, has to do with inner processes and dealing with questions that are buried deep inside ourselves. What are we holding on and not letting go of? What are we afraid of and resist? What do we think we are not capable of doing? So, what would you say to someone who is on the fence to start practicing Qigong in order to be able to decide if this is a technique for him or not?
You don't really need to know much about the theory. You don't need to get bogged down with it being the right Qigong or real Qigong or any of this stuff. Because some people get kind of lost in that, because once you start to talk about Qigong in different forms and like Reddit or whatever, there's a lot of noise out there. People can be a little bit like picky as to what they think is real and not real Qigong. But my advice to you is really just to dive in and start. Start with a 10-minute video on YouTube and just enjoy it. For example, I have friends that will come over and students and clients as well, who in one session will already tell me, like, last night I slept really well for the first time in weeks. I get home after our session, I felt safe for the first time after one session, and I broke down crying because I just felt so relieved. Other people had said, like, I had this pinched nerve in my neck for years. We did a few sessions and it's already gone.
Both Qigong and Taoist sexual mastery techniques were practiced for thousands of years in China to uplift people's spirit, to improve health, to reach longevity. What are some of the similarities and differences between Qigong and Taoist sexual techniques?
What's similar about them is that they're both learning to use your body's natural energy to promote the feeling of feeling good, pleasure, feeling good in your body, filling your body up with love, promoting health and longevity. Montauk Jia, he's one of the Taoist teachers who brought forth this idea of the multi-orgasmic man, or the Taoist sexual energy practices, to the Western world. And he says, like, this sexual energy that we have is what creates life, right? It creates life when you access it in your body. It feels really good. It feels like love. So one of our goals with Qigong and Taoist sexual alchemy, which you know a lot more about, so I'll turn that back over to you in a second, is basically to learn, especially with Qigong during the day, we're trying to cultivate our inner garden of our energy so that we have higher levels of positive energy and lower levels of our negative, stressful energy, so that we can meet the day's challenges, feel more good, feel more positive energy throughout our life. And really what we're focusing on with Qigong is a bit different than Taoist sexual energy in terms of the way that energy manifests itself, is like being more relaxed, being more centered, grounded, having more resilience, having more joy.
Another thing that comes to my mind is that sexual Taoist techniques deal with that energy in a sexually aroused state. I think that there's a strong focus in that type of technique to guide the energy from the pelvis area to the upper part of the body and then to circulate it, as opposed to Qigong that might have a more wider spectrum of different kind of energy movements. So about 2% of adult population worldwide struggle with substance use disorder. How can ancient Taoist techniques such as Qigong help with fighting addictions?
We have this myth in our culture of what is normal, and a lot of us deal with phone addictions. We drink alcohol, porn addiction, overworking, a lot of watching TV or Netflix all the time. To me, a lot of these things can actually be what addiction manifests as. And one of the core reasons that this happens is that we have a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain in our culture. And there's a lot of complex reasons for this pain. A lot of it comes down to, we've got childhood traumas, we've got work and daily related stresses, we've got, relationship challenges. And so it's a pretty deep problem that really requires more of a holistic strategy to deal with substance abuse or any forms of addiction. It's a pretty deep challenge of why are we in so much pain? Is there so much suffering? And feeling of being disconnected from love or health or wholeness. And so where Qigong comes in is it's a tactic that can be used as part of our bigger strategy to deal with this. And the reason it's useful is that it allows you to begin to deal with some of your anxiety and your stresses in a sober way. You also can learn how to smile into the body and to kind of create your own inner feeling of love and wellness, which a lot of the time we're looking for from drugs and substances, right? That's what we want. We want to numb the pain, and we want to feel pleasure, and we want to feel good. What Qigong does is it allows you to actually do that, but without a substance at all.
You mentioned there porn addiction, and one of the things that I often hear are men who question if what they're doing is really healthy, asking about, okay, how much porn is okay, and where's the point where it starts to become unhealthy? Why do you think it is not easy in the West to practice ancient Taoist techniques?
One of the reasons people struggle with it is that, first of all, we're scientists, we're indoctrinated or we're educated to use science and rationality, and the Tao is a different form of science that comes from a different place, different background, different reference experiences. And it's challenging because there's a lot of cultural barriers, there's education gaps, people already have things they're doing with their time, and so I think there's a lot of challenges in this way. So my main answer here is that it's challenging for the West because of just the way we're educated and the way we view the world.
So we are nearing the end of this interview, and I would like to ask you, Jared, what is one thing you would like our listeners to take with them today from this call?
So if there's one thing you walk away from today after listening to me and Moshe talk about Taoist practices, Qigong and Taoist sexual energy, is that in your body right now you have a life force energy that is beating your heart, it's running, it's feeding your brain energy, it's your inhale breath, exhale breath. That this energy requires skill for you to live the best life possible. The way you use your energy can make your life really great or really poor. And especially in the modern Western world, a lot of us don't have good examples of people who are using their energy in really highly effective ways. That's why we have anxiety epidemics, suicide epidemics, addictions, and we have a lot of people who aren't satisfied with their sex lives and their sexual energy. And so this interview should really be, if you're new to this stuff, should be a launching pad for you looking forward into the rest of your life and asking yourself, how am I going to be investing in my life to really maximize the use of my life force energy so I can live the best life possible?
How do people find you and your business, Effortless Qigong?
Okay, so you can find me at Effortless Qigong on YouTube. Every week I'm posting a video. You'll find many great Qigong exercises there, and I'll be putting up more videos talking about the theory of how you can use Qigong in your day-to-day life, especially around your work week, right? How can you have less stress and more energy throughout your work week?